All right, we are here. And today on the Bold Move podcast, which we are kind of hijacking and turning it into our hybrid podcast, The Bald Americans. That was a concept that came out of a significant amount of whiskey in Guns and Gis in August. But we have some awesome people today. So I got my buddy Lou. He was on the podcast a couple episodes ago. He's got some great stuff to talk about, some cool developments. And we also have Dave, who is a phenomenal person, was just on Greg Anderson's podcast and just has some really great insight on life and leadership. And I'm really excited to have this conversation, just talking about how we are framing or maybe reframing the trajectory of our lives going forward since Guns and Gis. So thank you guys for coming on. Kind of a quick little intro, but I'm excited to dive in and kind of check in, see how everybody's doing. So
yeah, thanks for the invite, Tim. And thanks for setting this up. I look forward to what we're going to discuss.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, let's do it. We know we're going to have a good conversation. We're all friendly from Forge, so
that's right.
It's going to be great.
That's right. Well, I think I want to start with Dave, because I think, when we did Guns and Gis again back in August, we've talked about it a lot on my platform because it was such a monumental time for me personally. It was great. But I think for someone who had never gone to that before or stuff like that before, just seeing your face is how excited, like you were excited probably more than anybody except for Asia, the entire duration of the thing. And so I just wanted to check in and maybe ask, what lessons did you learn from that trip? What are you taking from those lessons and applying it to your life moving forward?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Tim. Yeah, I mean, going out to Guns and Gis, I would say that there was a little bit of the edge of maybe not of going and not knowing anybody. Obviously, we had started Forge Ferocity, months ahead of that, and so I was going out there. Originally, I wanted to wait till the Utah date. My son had graduated from college in Salt Lake City, and we had never made it down to Provo, and so it's gonna be a chance to go there and see the fieldcraft community and do Guns and Gis. So that kind of seemed like the kind of the pie in the sky ideal Guns and Gis first experience. That quickly started to lose its luster, not from the standpoint that it wasn't, potentially great, more so just that I wanted to get to know face to face the people that I was kind of building a bond with through Forge Ferocity. So I think I forgot what number we settled at, but I think 11 or 12 of us made it out to Guns and Gis. And so there was that. And so one in knowing a lot of people, getting an Airbnb together, just even the trip from the airport getting picked up by Matt, who's in Forge Ferocity, and the discussions just started. And so from Thursday, SeaTac pickup to SeaTac drop off with Greg and his wife on Monday, it was, I don't use this too often, but a life-changing experience. And at 48, having been married 26 years, and I have two boys, 20 and 23, I haven't had life-changing experiences for a while.
Wow.
And so setting up the Guns and Gis experience, I had known, got to know the Forge Ferocity crew, got to know Greg Anderson. And I think in the back of my mind, I think it's natural. I was like, what if I meet these people? What if I meet Greg and, they're not quite like what they seem.
Right.
Or, hey, they say don't meet your heroes. And it's not like that situation at all. I wasn't, as much as I admire Greg, he's not like a hero or anything, but there was that component. Like I was going on, I'm like, this could go one or two ways. And what I'll say, kind of fast forwarding, kind of a synopsis of the weekend and the experience, is that not only did everyone kind of live up to like their virtual selves, but far exceeded. The sincerity and genuine nature of everybody. I think, we had 30 people attend, and from 1 to 30, all being there to try to get better. A really good vibe of, none of us are masters in any one of these areas, or certainly we had something we could learn, and then just top-notch instruction. I think that's my initial thoughts at the weekend going into it.
That's awesome. And I think that you're not alone. I think there's so many people that, there's all kinds of gun classes out there. There really are. I mean, you can go, Tim Kennedy's school. There's a bunch of them, but one of the benefits that I got out of this was that community building. Right. And I think we talked about that quite a bit on our last episode that we did together. So I love that. Moving forward with it though, and I think we'll kind of circle around, but I like the idea of, I think what I want to get away from is this idea is, hey, I'm going to go to this experience. I'm really going to have, like you said, a life-changing experience. And then that's it. And then you just go back into life, And so for me, I'm really curious about what are the things that you pulled from that are really putting you forward and into the next piece of your life.
Yeah. One thing that Greg mentioned, and he kind of coined the phrase followship, is something that I don't know that I had experienced, certainly not at the level of the Guns and Gis weekend. And so he kind of said, followship is when, as a man, you're willing to set all your pride and all your ego aside and say, I'm not the master of this. I don't have proficiency in this. And you agree to be led by someone. And that takes capital. I think as a man, that's not something you easily give up. And Greg throughout, kind of when he first burst onto the scene as a port officer in Seattle, and up to now, had gained a lot of capital. And then you see Lappin and Drawl. I mean, their resumes speak for themselves. So they had that capital built up. And so coming out of that weekend, being able to kind of place your trust in other men is something that it's not like I'm not trustful, but what I'm saying, it's like you really set everything aside and you say, hey, I'm going to be led in this situation, and you come out a better person. And so coming out of the weekend, I think that I really understood that they provided a base. So whether it was the range, Lappin provided a base of learning, of which then you can kind of build upon. And Drawl and Greg and Lappin on the mats provided a base that I could learn from. And then I got home and I started to kind of look at the different things in my life so Pistol going into Guns and Gis was just a collection of people who have shot more than I had, or, the guy at the range that gave me a tip, or just random things I had picked up about shooting. And so it was, if you put it on a page, it wouldn't make much sense.
Right. But
they provided a base. And so it's a way to kind of reflect on, being intentional with anything that I value, trying to also get a good base and not just kind of have it be a random collection of tips. And then, have kind of a rhyme and reason for why I'm doing what I'm doing. And I thought they modeled that really well during Guns and Gis.
I love that. Lou, you've done some pretty cool stuff since Guns and Gis, and we, obviously we did our podcast, which actually that got a lot more acclaim than I thought it was, but people loved it. It was a good conversation talking about 9/11, but you're such an interesting dude, and obviously you have your own podcast that brings in a lot of listenership as well. But as a repeat offender at Guns and Gis, were you able to pull anything new out of that? And if so, what?
Yeah, actually, great question. And I was thinking about that as you said it. I was, right? So you don't you don't go out there. Like if you go out there and don't pull anything from it, whether you've gone, one time or 100 times, that's, if you don't pull anything from that type of program, I don't know what to tell you really. But I did. And obviously you pick up on your 1% skills, 2% skills. I got 2% better at this. The walk back drill was a lot of fun, as you know. I mean, Tim, you and I went
It was
neck and
fun for
neck
one of us.
last year. Yeah. But we went neck and neck last year at 101 yards or something like that. That's fun. But really what I picked up on the most, and the whole reason I went there to begin with, was because of the Forge crew. If it wasn't for the Forge crew, I wasn't going, I definitely wasn't going to go this year. So it's not that I didn't pick up like shooting skills or jujitsu skills. Of course I did, whether it's, like I said, a tiny percent or a lot of percent, but I knew going out this time that I was going to be picking up relationships. I knew that going out. Like, I knew what the Guns and Gis curriculum was. Not saying I didn't learn anything. Of course I did. But I knew going out this time that it was going to be largely a part of the Forge reason why I was going to be there. And I'm obviously ecstatic that I did. I mean, I think being in the Airbnb, Dave, you'll attest to that, was huge also, because it was like that extra bonding time. We had all those extra minutes and just getting ready together and cracking jokes. And it was like legit bonding time, and to go from this online thing to that. And like you said, like Dave said, everyone exceeded expectations. Yeah, it was just a lot of fun, especially in the Airbnb. And yeah, did I take stuff out of Guns and Gis? Yeah, of course. But I knew going out to it, like I said, it was a Forge weekend for sure, and it was well worth it. I know everyone will say that. So
That's awesome.
Yeah,
I think. Go ahead.
To build on that really quick, Tim. I think that you talk about relationships and kind of point in times. So let's get this right. So we are April. Let's say, did we start beginning of April? Forge Ferocity.
yeah, I'd say so. I think it was like beginning of April.
Sounds right.
So I mean, we're maybe 5 months into virtual Monday and Friday calls, and it's a great environment. Very. I think just being in a place of truth and transparency. A lot of people who want to get better and have different ways that they've gotten there, different ways that they still need to get there, and then each other looking out, for each one. But I think that point in that relationship, to get out to Guns and Gis and see each other face to face and kind of take that relationship and validate it, is huge. Because if it had been, let's say it was a year before we all saw each other, I don't know that it doesn't diminish it, but the things that we're all already doing, and I know we're going to jump into that too, especially with, like, for Lou and Tim with your business and advancement, to know that who we're talking to sincerely want the best for each other. And we also had some chances to kind of, exhibit how invested we were in our friendships when we went out there. I think that was a real blessing, to have that at that point in time, rather than farther down the road.
Yeah, that's really good insight, because, I think there's a level of, we don't want to go too far without actually meeting each other, because then it's just weird. But being able to connect and then kind of back up that sediment that we have every time that we meet by actually having action and getting together. I think that was huge on that. That's really cool, man. So I think for me, just to tip in, my experience out of that was just huge. I think I got a real opportunity to see where I was at in life and in business and in my jiu-jitsu game and on the range, like all those things. I got a real opportunity to do a self-check and see where I was lacking in life and in those skill sets. And I don't know about you guys, but I don't typically do that. I don't typically take time to do self-checks and evaluate. And that was a great opportunity for me to accomplish that. And what it really did is actually put me on a pretty solid trajectory moving forward. And, there's a couple of things that I'll get into as far as our business. I mean, this is a business podcast that promotes what we do, but we have some very unique opportunities with it that I don't know that I would have the bandwidth to pursue if I didn't have that weekend, honestly. So with that, I think one thing that I'd like to dive into is, did you guys set a plan for yourself post Guns and Gis? Did you have something that you wanted to focus on? I think, Dave, you're pretty new to jujitsu, but I was going to check in and see if that's something you're still pursuing. Lou, I think you got a stripe since you've been back, right? So that's pretty rad. But I just kind of wanted to go around the room here and see what angle that you're going down now. Let's start with Lou.
All right. Yeah, I did get a stripe. I mean, I feel like a veteran white belt at this point, just because, you go and you don't go. But of course, I'm grateful for the stripe. I went there this morning, so
nice.
It's
How
refreshing.
long have you been a white belt? Because I bet you and I are very similar to that.
I signed up for the gym in January of 22.
Oh wow, okay.
I did not go for like the first 3 months. I went like once or twice.
Wow.
And then I went and, so very inconsistent white belt journey. I actually can't wait to get rid of my white belt because it's been one of those like life journeys, it's the up, down craziness,
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, jujitsu is always something I'm going to plug away at. Sometimes in my life, it's going to get more energy than others. And, I'm never going to give up on it, so, but yeah. And, since I've been back, I'm just trying to stay consistent as best I can with doing better, whether it's up here or physically, we, briefly talked about some, doing my health stuff, just getting things checked out. Not that, nothing, no secrets or anything, but just making sure things are good. That's really been on really the front of my top of my mind. And then, like I said, I kind of dove head into this union thing I got going on now. And just before we started, I'm, reading emails for a meeting tomorrow. It's kind of, it's weird to think about that I volunteered for more responsibility with not as much reward, but it's going to be a fun journey. I think it's going to be rewarding in its own way, for sure.
Is that your first leadership role as like a real life grown adult person, or have you taken on, you've had some, what we used to call in law enforcement leadership without rank, but more informal leadership roles. But is this like your first formal?
Yeah, this is going to be my first formal leadership role. I was previously like a leader in my shop per se, just of organizing basic stuff, overtime, things like that. But quick funny story. Like ever since I've been a kid, I remember we were Boy Scouts. We were doing it was called the something derby. It was like some type of derby we did as kids, and it's Boy Scouts, whatever. Yeah, something like that. It was like it's a series of events. You have to go around. Your troop goes around. You have to tie a rope. You have to all build a fire. We were like 10, and we had to pick a leader as 10-year-olds. And kids were like all picking boogers and stuff, but all my friends go, we want Lou to be the leader. And I'm like, me? And it's funny because one of my friends who was like the smart kid was like, yeah, you're very bold. And I'm like, all right, I guess I'm the leader. And ever since then, it's kind of always been like, all right, I guess I think every leadership role I've taken on before this formal leadership role was like, all right, well, if I got to carry the backpack, I'll carry the backpack. And it's interesting now to really be carrying the backpack with 130 other people under your representation, 140, something close to those lines. So
Wow.
yeah, first formal leadership role. So here we go.
That's right, man. That's awesome. And I think I'd like to stay in that vein a little bit, because watching Greg Lappin lead not just his portion of the camp, because obviously he's the primary firearms instructor there, but he sets a tone for the entire class with his leadership. You know, we teach firearms first. That's what we do. So right out the gate, he has to be setting that tone for everybody. But as it goes on, you know, one of the things, and I talked to him about this when I was in Utah, but he never ate at the bonfire until the last one of us had a plate full. And just talking about, like, dude, that didn't go unnoticed. And he's like, yeah, I always make sure my troops are squared away first. And it's such a great leadership concept, but one of many from him, you know. And Dave, you've been kind of a leader in your profession as well. What themes of leadership did you pick up from that weekend, the Guns and Gis weekend?
Yeah, had a really good talk with Lappin, just thanking him for the level of instruction, and kind of just really expressing how much I appreciated his skill as a firearms instructor. I think I put it to him, you could be a master teacher in anything. You just happen to choose firearms. Because, and that, Lou, that builds on what you're saying too. It's no coincidence. I think, like, throughout your life, you found yourself in positions of leadership, and it just happens to be, with your work now, and that's the outlet, and Tim as well. And, when we have our Forge Ferocity calls, on that call are a lot of leaders. And I don't think that's a coincidence. But one thing that Lappin said, I wanted to kind of offer encouragement. And then he responded back, and I'll paraphrase, but something effective. Yeah, I know I'm really good. And that's something I took away. I think so many times in lives or positions of leadership, or when you hear people kind of talk themselves up, or even express just confidence, people will take that as bragging, or being really prideful. And I caught somebody the other day kind of saying, well, I don't want to brag, or I don't want to be boastful. And here's the thing: the work that Lappin puts in, and the hours, and the determination, and the learning, and the years of mastery, you should be able to be confident about that. Express confidence, be bold, be boastful, show pride. Now, if he was doing that in something he was obviously not proficient in, just like any of us, if we were just kind of like, talking about something where we had no knowledge of, that's another story. I think that's where you get into, what are you talking about? You have no idea what you're talking about, but you're being, you're bragging yourself up and talking yourself up, and it's based on nothing. His is firmly entrenched, and that's an admirable quality of a leader. And I think when leaders choose to express themselves that way, and it's rooted in reality, is then that's when we, who want to level up in those areas, can find them as leaders. I just think when we're amongst so many people that could probably fall into that category. And I know, so kind of getting on opportunities I've had. So I lead a men's coffee group every Tuesday morning, and, through the door, we've had, 100 plus different guys at any given time. We average about 25 guys every Tuesday, coming in, talking about the message from church the Sunday before, sometimes just talking about life and how everything applies. There's a lot of Christian men, unfortunately, fall into the trap of, I don't want to be prideful. I don't want to be boastful. And, they look at it as a negative quality. And like I said, if it's rooted in ignorance, or if it's not rooted in reality, that's one thing. But taking them, for example, 25 some guys, there's certainly a handful of guys there that could lead us in areas that we need to be led in, and set an example if we knew that's where they were going. or if that's what they were proficient in. But when they're quiet, and I would say kind of silenced by society or by the church, then that's problematic, you know. And so it was refreshing to see Lappin's perspective, and I want to adopt that. And so that takes work. And I mean, we can get into what leadership means, because I always you know, get a lot of guys in different roles, whether it be at work, whether it be at church, whether it be in some of the fundraisers I'm involved with. You know, they kind of admire the leadership title, but I always ask them, or always let them know, be careful, you know, because the title of leader holds a lot of responsibility.
Yeah. Having worked for some people that just wanted the title and not actually earn it, you know, I totally hear that. That's really good perspective, man. I love that. And I think that maybe that is one of the bigger things that we all kind of got out of it, because we kind of all went there as followers, right? We all were being humble to learn and receive information and be a part and be connected. But being able to watch all three of those guys as leaders, you know, kind of take that culture and take the tone and the mood of our group and kind of craft it in that culmination towards that last day. That's all leadership. It really is. So that's cool, man. I love that. Switching gears a little bit, Dave. I mean, maybe it's not switching gears a little bit. You have some leadership stuff coming up, but really it has a lot more to do with some of your physical activities that you're doing. You're taking leadership roles in some of your charities that are going on. But I wanted to see if you want to expand upon that a little bit, because it truly is cool. It's a great way to benefit others while benefiting yourself as a byproduct, right? So lay it on us.
Yeah, and, you know, thanks. I didn't know we were going to discuss this, but I'm actually really excited because it fits into exactly what we're talking about right now. So I'll be doing a marathon October 19th, so a little inside a month right now, and you know, definitely putting in the work. And so this is kind of a continuation of last year. And so I was going to do the Minneapolis Marathon last year, and on the first weekend in October, it was actually canceled due to heat. So I'm in Minnesota. That's extremely rare. Yeah. I got up to like 90 degrees by 10 a.m., 10:30 that day. And, you know, I think I could have got it done. It would have been challenging, right around like that 3.5 to 4 hour mark. But then you got to remember, there's people who are taking 6 hours of doing it, and it's their accomplishment of a lifetime. And if you're taking that long, you also probably have some health concerns. So that was canceled, and it's probably a blessing. I got the miles in, but this one's going to be official. And but last year to this year, a lot changed. It had to. When I was training for it last year, it was really all about me, and you know, my time to run and my time, you know, trying to get my family to prioritize that it had to be, I had to get my miles in. I had to do this. I had to do that. And I was actually raising money for a charity at the time. But the focus was on me. And so kind of fast forwarding to this year, and I think as a leader, this applies. If the focus is on you and how you want to project yourself forward and raise yourself up and what you are hoping to accomplish, then I think your impact's minimized. And so this year I went in and I said, okay, I want to do this and I'm going to do this. But how can I help other people? And so, you know, through Forge, I got to know Joshua and his family. And actually during the Guns and Gis trip, I was talking to Joshua about a lot of things, about life, and obviously him and their family losing their youngest son. And he mentioned a charity, Us Versus Cancer, that helps people on the islands of Hawaii, you know, with healthcare expenses, travel expenses, because a lot of times the care that they need can't be provided on the islands. Mm-hmm. And I mean, for example, Joshua and his family had to travel to New York. So it's an amazing charity. But the reason it really stuck out is because Joshua, you know, shared that it was really people who were going out of their way to help him and his family in a time of need. And it was something that he could anchor back to when the world got really dark. And, it's that light that we can offer each other by just doing the right thing. And while it might seem small, providing someone light to get back to, when they're going through a challenge with that, like that as a family, is huge. And so that was easily, when I'm doing this marathon this year, I'm kind of doing it independently from my usual charity that I help out. And so I identified them. And then, in talking to Joshua, I also realized as a friend, trying to help another friend through grief, I had no idea. I mean, I'm really blessed to have not dealt with a ton of grief that's kind of outside the norm. Like my old relatives, get old and they pass away, kind of normal run of the mill grief. And in talking to Joshua, I just in the back of my mind, I was like, I want to help, but I feel like everything I say is just falling short. And his wife Shauna wrote a book called Even If, and so Shauna Dukes, Even If, and I've seen a lot of her kind of daily affirmations on Instagram, helping people with grief and loss. And I read the book, and by no means a grief counselor at this point. I'm not, but it helped understand that just providing spaces to listen, just being in those environments that I was with Joshua, when we were at the Airbnb or traveling in the car, providing opportunities for him to just talk about the loss, talk about his son, talk about his family and the way they dealt with it. That was accomplishing a lot more than I was realizing. Because I think you want to do the grandiose and you want to take pain away for friends and family when they're going through that. But a lot of times, just listening is enough. And then, like many of us, so this whole marathon experience, the key idea here is I'm going to do the miles, and it is what it is. But I wanted to shine light on other people who were deserving and who have stories that needed to be heard, and organizations who would help my friends. And then the last one, getting to know Ange. So Ange, who did Greg's podcast, and getting out of an abusive relationship. I know I have friends that fall into that boat. I know I have family members that fall into that boat of being in abusive relationships. And again, something that I had no direct, experience with. So got to know Angela a bit at Guns and Gis, and her company Prioritized Pain. I'm like, I'm going to help that however I can. So I reached out to him, and got to know Chad with the company as well, and his story. Chad Youngquist and his story and what he shares on Instagram, and Ange and her kind of rebuild and family. It's just so beautiful. So I can run miles, and I think that catches attention because it's something challenging. But this year was going to be all about those stories. So I appreciate that. I know that's a little long-winded, but it was really, and then you talk about as a leader. I don't know if that makes me a leader, but I feel that I'm doing the right thing. I'm taking the focus off me because I signed up. I signed on the dotted line to do a marathon, and that was something difficult. But there's a team of people, there's support around me that keep me running. I actually did a run on Saturday, and it was warm here again in Minnesota. And I really thought about Joshua's son, Trucker, actually 3 times. So that's how long of a run it was. But, it got more energy in my step. Those motivations and the truth that they've shared and the trust that they've entrusted us with by sharing their stories, it matters. So it's awesome to get it out. And I appreciate the question, Tim, and the chance to talk about it.
Yeah, I mean, it is inspiring. I hate running. I used to be a runner, and then I had knees, and so it stopped. But to me, the ones that get out there and really put the miles in are really inspiring. Your Goggins, your Daves. So when I when I heard that you were doing that.
Goggins, full stop.
Yeah, no, same thing. Same thing. But it's just really, really inspiring to see something like you said it, right? It's like, hey, look, I can do this. Let's see how I can help others with this.
Yeah.
And that's awesome. I think that's something that we should all aspire to do. And Lou's doing the same thing, right? Hey, I know this business. I know the union stuff. Sign me up. And then he was elected to his position. So that's super cool.
Actually,
yeah.
Total side note. I actually was thinking about bringing this up in Forge. I actually didn't get elected. I got
really
nominated and no one ran against me. So therefore I was it was actually bothering me all week. I'm like, nobody fucking voted for me. Like, does that still count? Like, is that fair?
Oh yeah.
But,
don't doubt yourself.
Total side note, but I was like, I got to bring this up to the Forge crew because it's been something that's like bothering. Like, no, I wanted to get voted in. Like, I wanted to be like, the guy. But
well, they didn't vote you out.
That's true. That no one ran. Yeah, no contest votes. I guess it counts, right?
Yeah, that's the path of least resistance, bro. They're like, well, it's fine.
If you look at national politics, that's kind of the trend anyway. To not really be elected into your.
How much time do we have, Dave?
Weird.
That's all I'll say about that. But.
Weird. I mean, he's from New Jersey, so.
Yeah, I'm Louis Hoffa over here.
Louis Hoffa, perfect. Oh man, that's awesome. What as far as skill-based stuff, I know Dave, you're doing your running. How's your workouts going, Lou? Are you changing what you're doing with them? Are you changing up jiu-jitsu? What does that look like?
I've been just trying to be more consistent. I've actually been doing like stuff not necessarily workout related, but I've been like today I did a 45-minute walk with no phone, no nothing. I just didn't run. I specifically want to walk because it's longer. So like I leave the phone at home and just go for a nice walk and stuff like that. It's actually kind of nice. I've been doing stuff like right from work. I go right to the gym and I really just try to do cardio. Like whether I do 30 minutes on the, high incline treadmill or 15 row, 15 minutes on the tread. It's just I've been trying to just do more activity, whether it's high intensity or low intensity. I've just been trying to do more and be more better consistent with it. I wish I was having killer workouts in the gym. Haven't had the best ones, but maybe other issues involved there. I don't know, but I'm just trying to keep the activity level higher regardless of what it is. I actually really enjoyed the walk with no phone. I sent you guys a picture of me taking a walk around, World Trade. That was a nice excuse to do it while at work. But it's like finding like the opportunity, right? Doing it the best time. There's no reason I can't go right to the gym from work. I usually come home and wait to go to jiu-jitsu anyway. So might as well go to the gym, It's just stuff like that, I personally need to do better with my consistency versus like higher intensity workout or something along those lines.
Yeah, we have a phrase here that I consistently have to repeat in my head, and that is anything is better than nothing. Right?
Yeah, well, I've been saying the 1% better every day.
Yeah, the same deal. But I'll wake up sometimes and like, man, started looking at work emails, and now that my time to work out is diminished, and like, should I even do it? Yes, you should do it. Get out there, and so consistency is key.
I mean, that's one of the hardest parts too, is doing it, right? Like we all have a million things we could figure out, like what to not do it. That's I mean, at least that's my biggest hurdle. It's like, just do it. That's always my biggest.
It served me well. That's why we're doing this podcast, is because we're just doing it,
Yeah.
So I think, cardio is something that I've always lacked. Like I said, I used to run, but it's not my favorite thing. And listening to Andy Frisella and talking about his rucks that he goes on, I was like, yeah, I could do that. So I bought a Rogue weight vest. And I have a big old hill in my neighborhood, and I ruck up that thing at a pretty solid pace. And my goal is to be more consistent with that, but it's a game changer because it's not really super high impact on my knees. I have bad knees, but it does allow to get the heart moving and all that. So that's a new venture that I started since Guns and Gis too.
Yeah, and Dave, I give you a ton of credit too, because I'm definitely going to have bad knees. I've been trying to be more consistent with my running, and I'll run like 3 miles, and my one knee is like, "Yo, you do not do that again."
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's fine, but I could tell if I were to push it, like, you got Goggins in the back of your head. I know it's a high impact, like if my body don't agree with it, and I never liked it anyway. It's not like I, found solace in running. Every footstep was pain. Like I just,
Yeah. I can't. So October 19th is going to be kind of the test date. And then, I'm definitely stepping away and kind of reevaluating what next season's going to look like. I know that I'm going to commit a lot more to triathlons. For me, that's either a 3 or a 6 mile run, and that is pretty easy to stay in shape for, and also manage a life and also manage jujitsu, which I want to pour a lot more time into in lifting and work, et cetera, and family. Marathon's very isolating, but somehow I've become the run friend. I don't know how that happened.
I know.
I'm so unnatural as a runner. I'm like 6'2", anywhere from 205 to 215. So I probably outweigh the typical runners that I'm around at like race days by 40 to 50 to 60 pounds. And so my first tip that I give people is like, don't run. It's so Lou, you said, good knees or bad knees, and Tim, bad knees. And I played football for 8 years, and I bent my knees in ways that you wouldn't think knees should humanly bend, and they were fine. And I through my 30s and 40s, real low activity, especially through my 30s, my knees were great, and now I have knee problems. So, go bike, go swim. I love like walking and ruck. You get into the aerobic zone with your heart rate, and you're expanding your aerobic base. When you go above that, you're kind of like in a fight or flight, and it is damaging. You get a lot of inflammation. So yeah, like walking and ruck and bikes and swimming, I would recommend all of those before running. Unless you're the little 5'4" guy that weighs about 145 pounds, then knock yourself out. But it's not coming with a glowing recommendation, and I can't wait to set the running shoes aside for a couple months here in a couple weeks.
How do you train? What do you do to train? I saw you on a track. I saw you just out on the road and stuff like that. But do you ever hit a treadmill? Does that kill you worse than the road? What does that look like for you?
So going along with 8 years of football, one thing I did get is a lot of concussions. And so I have a problem running in place. So treadmills, pretty much just treadmills, actually. Running on them, it really messes with my head. And then any movies like Blair Witch Project, that was an absolute nightmare. Just screws with my vision, and it's not a good day. But yeah, I get out. I mean, regardless. And so I actually don't have it down here, but I usually have my miles chart. So I run about 5 days a week. Miles are always on Saturday. And so that's a long run. Recover Sunday with like active recovery. So a walk, a bike, something just to kind of get those knees moving again. A rest day on Monday, and then just start hitting it again the next week. And there's different plans out there. And I was actually talking to my son this morning. So next week is peak miles, and then you kind of start to taper for race day. Now is not the time to ask me what time I think I'm going to get, what per mile pace I'm going to get. I was running yesterday. I'm like, why are you doing this? Like it's not too late. You could scratch it and just do the half marathon. You can do that. You hate running. Your knees hurt. Your per mile pace sucks. The heat's burning your energy to the ground. the carbs aren't working. Everything in my mind went through that. And then because I had those things to reattach, like why I'm doing the race and what I'm doing it to raise awareness for. Here's the thing. I'm going to get the time I get, and it's going to go how it goes. But I tell you what, I'm going to finish it. And that's that. And then I'm hopefully going to raise some good money for Us versus Cancer. I'm hoping with the book, just a side note there too, with grief and loss. I shared with you guys when I was out at Guns and Gis, but I have a buddy, Andy, who had the first all organ transplant in the United States, and you can Google Andy Vogie Cleveland Clinic, and his story comes up, and you would think it's something right out of science fiction, but unfortunately he's losing his battle to cancer, and it's just there's not too much to patch him up with anymore. But his story is an amazing story, but it's going to hit our community here, and there's some people who have gone through grief, and maybe they're going to be helpers. They're going to be help people heal, and like I said, I'm trying to up my capability of doing that. We have a lot of people who are going through grief that haven't dealt with it, and then we have a lot of people who I think are just blind to the hit that they're about to take. So with that book, I'm just trying to raise awareness in my community of saying, hey, this is on our horizon and we know it's coming. You really need to prioritize, getting ahead of it a little bit. I think it's going to help us all. So
That's so cool, buddy. I like hearing your strategy, but more than that, I like hearing what drives you on that. And it's just super inspiring, man.
Thank you.
So let's talk jujitsu. I have not done a ton of time at jujitsu, and I'm kicking myself for it. Part of it is, my girls are doing volleyball now, and their volleyball practice hits right at when jujitsu starts. Logistics is just not working. So I have, some options with that, trying to find possible morning classes and then hitting my gym when I can. But I went and rolled at Fieldcraft last weekend, and I'll tell you the level of intensity that those guys have coming out of them. It's next level. It's next level. And so I'm like, it left me sitting, dude, I gotta up my game quite a bit on that. So I actually have, some strategies with that. One of the things that we talked about in Forge, and, I think sometimes because we're all buddies and we do this twice a week, we figure that everybody knows what we're talking about. But just in case you don't, Forge Ferocity is a group of men and women that get together Monday mornings at 9 over Zoom, and then Fridays at 7 a.m. and that's all Pacific time. So sorry, Dave and Lou, I just assumed your time zone.
You just assumed our time zone.
Yeah. But we talk about life stuff and goals and all this stuff. And one of my goals that I've built in is signing up for a jiu-jitsu competition by our deadline in this 90 days, which is, what do we say? It was December 19th. Is that right?
Yeah. Something, yeah. Or 20th. Yeah. 19th.
Something like that. But that is a goal, because I know that if I don't up my game, I'm going to get mauled, and I don't want that for me. So what goals have you set, Lou, on that trajectory? Are you just trying to attend when you can? Do you ever want to compete? Do you ever give me your thoughts on that?
Yeah, so I'm with you, man. First of all, with the competing, it's not something I originally intended on wanting to do, just because I'm a casual jiu-jitsu person, but it has been on my mind more and more. Just, it's always nice to kind of test the waters and see how you do. So it's been on my mind. I think there's a place by me. They do one in January. So I think that's going to be on the list.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I think it's going to be on the list, but I'm with you, man. I have not been, I got there twice this week. It's not what I wanted. But life is life, and scheduling is difficult for me. I mean, we're getting the most amount of overtime we've ever got. So,
oh, wow.
It's nonstop. It's 4 or 5 days a week. I mean, 6 to 6:30 for me. Eastern time, Tim, you know. Um, and it's tough though, because classes will start at 6 for me, and it's paying for a wedding and a lot of other things. So it's like, all right, am I staying for overtime, or am I leaving early, going to jujitsu? Am I going home? And then, so my point is I'm with you, man. Just trying to do my absolute best to make the time when I can, to get there when I can. It sounds like, as I say it, it sounds like an excuse for myself, but I'm also trying to be realistic, you know, and I just know that I won't give up on jujitsu, but it's at a certain point, when do I make the decision to cut the hard line? Like, hey, no matter what, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, it's like, no matter what, you got to go.
Yeah.
And that's been tough because I try to keep a fluid schedule. And at some point, like I said, if I'm going to compete, at some point that decision is going to have to be made, and it's going to have to be set in stone. And it's like, we're overtime or not, or we're, you know, whatever, it's got to happen. So I'm with you on the consistency, Tim. You know, especially, I mean, you have kids, you have a much better excuse than I do, but
Not
and
exactly,
it also doesn't
man.
surprise me that you got mauled by Greg's guys, because I mean, look at the energy he brings.
Dude, there was this dude,
you
Hunter, that looked like a gorilla, and I don't even know what happened. Like, I got subbed like 3 times in 30 seconds. I had no idea. This is crazy.
Doesn't surprise me coming from that gym. Does not surprise me.
So I'm gonna hijack this show a little bit, Tim, because I'm super excited for both of you guys, and you touched on something there that if anybody's listening, get something on the calendar. If you know, whatever it is, if it's a 5K, if it's a competition, that accountability, and then let people know you're doing it. Also, don't sign up for it and then the day of the race be like, well, I'm going to ghost this because no one would know any better. Sign up for it. Tell your friends, tell your spouse, tell your kids, tell your kids. That's the best one. Like, dad's going to do something on this day, or tell your spouse, tell your loved one, tell your friends at work, and then tell them before you head out for the weekend too. Get something on the calendar that you can hold yourself to account for. I mean, how many times have you guys just kind of trained without purpose and ended up, maybe in comparison to where you ended up if you had something on the calendar? Like, how did those two look? For me, they look dramatically different. I mean, my wife is always like, what do you got going on? What do you got going on next? Like, what's on the calendar now? And our biggest discussions are trying to like make all that work. But I do it because I'm a better version of myself when I hold myself to account. So what do you guys think about that? Have you always kind of done that with maybe not necessarily jujitsu, but like other things, or where are you at with that?
Oh yeah, man. I mean, that's perfect. That's a perfect description of Forge Ferocity, right? For a lot of different things. And I mean, I did it before I realized I was doing it during COVID, or coming out of COVID. I was paying for a personal trainer at the gym right up the street. I was doing like 3 sessions a week. I was paying like over $500 a month for a personal trainer. But what I ended up realizing was that if I knew I made the schedule to meet him at 4:30 at the gym, I wasn't going to miss it. But if I made the schedule for Lewis to meet Lewis at the gym at 4:30, I miss it almost every time. So I paid a lot of money for accountability. I mean, also I got results, of course, too. But I was thinking about yeah, I've done it before. And like you said, getting someone on a schedule, Dave, is a great way to do it. Is definitely a great way to do it. And it's something, me personally, I need that extra type of motivation too, because internal Lewis will talk external Lewis out of doing anything. Nah, you don't have to do it. You don't have to. So yeah, I 100% agree with you. 100%.
Yeah, I always think that I perform better, not just when I have a goal, but when I can break up the steps that lead to that goal. For me, I know that if I'm going to do a comp, there's some things that I need to know, right? And not just know them, but I also know that, say a sweep, I'm going to need to know a couple of sweeps because I want to be able to have some variations if things don't go the way I want them to, right? So that means not only do I need to know different sweeps, but I also need to pressure test them. And I need to set myself up with a practice structure that allows me to do that. And then open up that practice structure so that there's more variables, right? So performance for me is just synonymous with having goals, right? Otherwise, how do you measure? And so I like putting something on the calendar. When I was doing half marathons, I never done a full marathon unless you're allowed to combine a couple of half marathons together. I feel like I should have some credit there, but I always set it out and then we would train for it. Otherwise, you're just out in the ether. And the same is true when it comes to gun stuff. You know, we talk a lot about jujitsu, but if you just go to the range to just shoot your gun, you're probably not doing a ton of skill building. You know, you're probably just going through those motions. When I go to the range, and it's been a while, I'll be honest, but when I go, there's certain things that I want to work on. Maybe it's trigger control. Maybe it's accuracy. Maybe it's speed. Maybe whatever it is. But I'm going to set up certain drills to help craft that expected outcome, right? And train for that. So I think all of those things kind of go in line with what you're saying, Dave, is just having, knowing what you want your outcome to be, knowing how to get there, and then just doing the thing.
Yeah, I love that. You actually segued into my other question for you guys, in almost a little bit of challenge. And I would say anybody listening to this too, Greg Anderson and I talk about this quite a bit, about time intentionality. And one way I've been putting that into practice, and I won't like show it right up, but I have this list. And so every day, vertically, it's Monday of the week, and it's as granular as, you know. And Lou, you might be envious too. I sleep until like 7 o'clock in the morning. I'm sure you're up way. I just feel like Lou's like way up. Yeah, 4. There you go. But you know, it's honestly, it's wake up, make coffee, do devotional, do prayer. You know, when my meetings are spread throughout the day with work, and then what else fills in the day. So you know, if it's a high mileage run day, okay, that's going to be an hour and a half, 2 hours of running. So that's got to fit somewhere. And ideally it's in the morning. And so you kind of start to craft that day, because, you know, time is the one thing we can't purchase. You know, and you hear it, everybody. I'm tired of the story of Steve Jobs, because whatever, but you know, even on his deathbed, you know, he does one thing he couldn't get back, and he realized he had wasted so much time. And that's not an uncommon story. So while I still have time and I'm healthy, I'm going to use it to its fullest. And so one thing I implemented is that daily list of, you know, very granular, what needs to get done in the day. And then it also gives me a chance to like assess, am I setting myself up for failure? Because I think a lot of guys, I mean, a lot of people, but let's say, you know, the guys, the crowd that might listen to this, they feel like failures. They feel like they can't hold to a schedule. They can't hold themselves accountable. They aren't, you know, Lou, you're not getting to the gym unless you have a appointment with a trainer. What I think actually is not that we're not accountable, that we're not, it's not that we're not disciplined. We're just really crappy planners. And we didn't take the time to be intentional to say, what do I need to get done today? And then, you know, so you wake up and you go to bed this time. So in between you have X amount of meetings, and then let's say you need to do 3 things. Do those 3 things, even hours and minutes, fit into those gaps that you have left in the day?
Right.
Or are you setting yourself up for success, and you were only ever going to be able to achieve 1, you know, maybe 2, and you're always not achieving something. So you're like, I'm a failure, or I'm a procrastinator. And what you needed to do was kind of chart it out. And the comparison I'll use, and then I want to get your opinion, is, you know, you don't go to the gym and go over to the leg machine, and then you go over to the you know, the dumbbells and do biceps, and then you go over and do some squats. You know, you have like today's arm day, today's chest day, today's leg day, today's back day. You map it out, And then you also don't just go in and, well, I'm just going to do how many sets I feel like, and I'll mix up the reps. And no, you have a detailed plan if you hope to achieve something. So with time, why do we try to do it differently? And when I do this, I have great days or good days. And I can make rhyme or reason of why things happened. When I don't, then it's like it's just a crapshoot.
Yeah, you're literally just floating out there, right? And hoping for the best. So that's a good point, just being a better planner on those things. And I am pretty solid when I'm detailing out what my workouts are going to be. And I have, I'm a nerd when it comes to data. So I have apps that help facilitate that stuff and plan out what I'm doing. But with jujitsu, I really don't have that because you're kind of beholden to what your professor is teaching, So I think being able to take what that curriculum is and then craft it into what you want it to be as well, or just asking those questions while you're there and practicing on your own. Those are some good ways of developing your skill set the way you want it to be developed,
It's funny you got this topic comes up because inherently I'm just a very nonchalant, go with the flow type person. It drives my fiance crazy because she would plan, down to the minute of the day, she'll take a shower if she could, or, every little detail, when I'm the polar opposite. And it's funny because when I got this new union position, my fiance was like, "Are you going to even remember that have this new position, or you're probably going to forget because you didn't write it down?" But I've been thinking about it, and I'm like, when, again, accountability, right? Now that I know I'm representing people, I know internally, hey, this has to get done. Like, this isn't just for Lewis. This is for everyone. And as I was thinking about that, I'm like, this is probably, because I still do it. I'm still very nonchalant. I'm like, I'll pay the bill tomorrow and I forget, that type of thing, right? But end up somehow always getting it done in time. But I think me now being more responsible for so many more people, I think my hope is that intentionally, unintentionally, being more regimented and responsible and organized with that is going to spill over into my personal life, organizationally and everything else. And I think the reason it'll do that is because of creating habits, right? Or getting better with repetition of creating schedule and planning out when's this meeting? And then it might slowly work its way over to Lewis and say, all right, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, we do this, or you guys catch my point.
Yeah.
And I have a feeling it will, because like I said, I don't have a choice. I can't be nonchalant and flowy with union related business. I don't have a choice. If I slack on decisions making, other people are going to bear the brunt of that. And that's ultimately my fault. Whereas with this other planning we're talking about, if I don't plan it, it's only Lewis. So kind of hoping that because of that, I will now get better at doing it with myself personally. And I have a feeling that it will, because it's pattern and it's becoming more and more embedded into me to therefore execute things better for myself.
So well said, man. I think this is the stuff that just talking about it kind of fleshes out some stuff. And I know that I'm over here taking notes because I know some things that concept is definitely going to help with. So way to go, Dave. Thanks for being life-changing again. I appreciate that.
No surprise from Dave. Dave always kills it.
I'll just say this, how did I learn that? And why do I feel driven to move that message forward? It's, if you want to, and I give myself lots of grace. Life is life, and I'm glad I'm at where I'm at now. But largely that was my 30s, and I had kids, and I had a wife during my 30s, and I was just drifting. I think the best way I can say it, I was a participant in my life. I was not the conductor. I was not in control, and every day I was losing a little bit more control. And Lou, you said it with your work, and I think that you're getting into an exciting time in life where you're starting to bounce around the idea of fatherhood. And even before that, let's not put the cart before the horse. marriage, and now with your with your fiance, you owe it to her. Like you owe her the best version of yourself, and you owe her being present when you're together. And as a husband, you'll owe so much more. And we already talked about that. Like it isn't overnight, and it isn't like just being the best. It's jujitsu. It's learning. It's a relationship through like Forge. We build those day after day. But just keep that mentality. And I'm always excited for you, Lou, because you're young. I think I joked with you like when it was your birthday, like your birthday present is you're still young. Like enjoy it. Congratulations. But you are having these conversations when I don't know what the hell I was doing. I can't even remember it back to 31, but I wasn't thinking like you're thinking. And so to see that and to see the opportunity as a, soon to be husband and a future father, I would be really excited about that if I was you. And it's already reflecting and knowing that you got to step up into leadership and be a man, because you're not going to be happy with others leading you that are idiots. And I just learned that 2 years ago. So you're way ahead of the curve, and that I love that for you. Jordan in the group, kind of same boat, young dad, and that makes everything worth it. That makes it okay that my 30s weren't exactly spent the way they should have been spent, if I can pay that forward and to help you on that journey. So it's awesome to see.
Yeah, well, yeah, thank you, Dave, for starters. And, like to bring up Jordan too. I mean, he's a young dad too, and he's a sergeant for, so he's leading a group of guys, in police work. So yeah. And, to your point, I said it over a year ago when there were no rumors of anyone else wanting to get involved in a union. And I heard some names tossed out, and I'm like, well, I'm not going to have that fucking guy tell me or run my union, so, but that's, first of all, it's literally what I said. And second of all, that's the stem of where you start planning the opportunity in your head, right? Like, okay, well, if that is the case, then what's Lewis going to do? And I can't tell you how many times I said, we've said it plenty in our Forge group, is like, well, if you're looking around the room for the leadership, I guess you're the guy, right? So again, like I mentioned before, I didn't get elected, which kind of bothered me. But at the same time, no one else was willing to look around the room and put their hand up in the air. So it's either at that point now it's all right, put up or shut up, and here we go, So, and like you said, Dave, the fiance notices, and I hope she does. I know she does. She encourages me. And like you said, with the jiu-jitsu and everything, I mean, she's a go-getter too in her own right, with her doctorate degree and working out 5 times a week. So we feed off each other well enough, and we both learn things from ourselves. And yeah, like you said, we don't want to put the cart before the horse. I mean, we've been talking about wedding stuff this morning, but at the same time, we were looking at one of the bedrooms, and we were like, well, kid pops up, what's going here and there, so it's exciting. I'm excited. And yeah, sometimes I like, to your point, Dave, too, at 32, I'm thinking about a lot of things. And I think a lot of times though, I get ahead of myself and kind of like, well, the Gregs have this and that. Or I look up to people, that are like yourself, Dave, and Tim's a little older than me. But like looking up to you, Dave, you've got 15, years on me, and a lot can happen in 15 years. So I try not to get too ahead of myself as well, with certain things and life goals and stuff like that. But I'm doing my best to get my head on the path straight now, and hopefully keep it that way for sure.
I love it. Well, I'll tell you, just kind of wrapping up on my side of the house, on that vein of, if you're looking around and nobody's raising their hand, it's probably you. You would be surprised. And this is kind of a law enforcement corrections based podcast. That's really kind of where it falls. And a lot of our listeners fall in that as well. But around the country, there are agencies that'll send their corrections officers onto the floor right into the lion's den without ever going through any training. They partner them up with the oldest person there and hope for the best, Um, and obviously there's a huge increase in liability with that. Not to mention, people aren't just lining out the door trying to sign up to be corrections officers. And part of that is they need to feel comfortable doing the job. So one of the new projects that we're building, and we've had experience doing it, my team and I, because we built Washington State's Corrections Academy. It's a 10-week academy. That was my legacy project at our state level. But we built our own ARC Core Academy for agencies or states that need something. And this is a plug and play type situation. And so if you're an agency out there that's listening that is trying to develop your own thing and don't have the certifications or the expertise to do it, we got your back. But that's really in line with what we're talking about. It has to do with planning. It has to do with structure. It has to do with knowing what we want our end goal to be. And that's how we build officers through this program. And so that is through that leadership piece that we talked about earlier. That's something that we kind of crafted, and we're really, really excited about it. That is, it's launched now, and we're going to be shopping that around to different agencies. We're already working with a couple to adopt that program. So that's something that we're doing with ARC. We already talked about the stuff that we're doing with jiu-jitsu and other goals there. I think, Dave, I'm going to ask you to kind of close things out and just talk about what's coming up for you. I know you have a project that you're working on as well outside of your running, but I just have you throw a plug in for that, and we'll go from there.
I'm blanking.
Podcast.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, no, someone asked the other day what, hey, what do you have going on? And I think I probably hurt their ears by listing everything off. And they said, wait, aren't you also a college professor? And I totally forgot. But part of it was coming back from Guns and Gis is to basically say yes, from a physical standpoint. I had taken a lot on. And when you do that, you realize, Tim, you mentioned, like, when you have something come up, you approach it analytically, like, can I do this? And like, if it's really difficult, you kind of got to do like, okay, what am I doing this day? And how am I going to break it up? And you break it into digestible portions, and you realize, oh, I can do that. And I said, okay, with physical, I really believe that mind, body, and soul are connected. So what if I really push myself on the mind front? And I said yes to a lot of things. And I just basically put myself into a corner where it was like, okay, Dave, you got to figure this out, or you're not going to meet the expectations, or you're going to fail. How far could you push it? And so kind of coming back, so Monday after Guns and Gis, really blessed to Greg had asked me to come on his podcast, and that was surreal. To sit in front of Greg Anderson and, this guy that I had listened to for years and literally hundreds of podcasts. It was such a great conversation that I felt like I owed him. And it's kind of the idea to like bookend the Guns and Gis weekend to say, okay, Dave, 0 to 48, it was what it was. And the end of that chapter, the end of that story, it ended really good, but I need to bookend that. And I need to be more action driven, and the things that I value, or the things I've always wanted to do, or the things that will make me a better version of myself for my wife and my family, I just got to do. And I got to see if I'm going to fail at it, if it's something I don't draw interest from. And so thank you, Tim. So the Stronghold podcast, the first episode, I don't know when this will come out, but the first episode is going to drop on September 24th, Tuesday morning. It's going to be a weekly podcast. So far, my solo podcasts in the recordings are running about 15 minutes. So I'm not going to ask anybody the Joe Rogan commitment of 3+ hours or anything. The solo pods are going to be, hey, you're heading to work on Tuesday morning, or Monday through Friday when in the mornings you're heading to work, or you're grabbing your morning coffee. and it's going to be topics around capability and truth. So I feel like I could spend a lifetime within those, just exploring your capability, whether it be mind, body, and soul, and then just looking for truth in your life. Because I think from Forge Ferocity, one thing we realized is if you operate from a lens of truth, that you can deepen friendships faster, that you can improve yourself, that you can help improve others, that you can be the best version of yourself by being the truest version of yourself, and that people will relate to that, and people do value that because it's not something you can find on your phone. It's not something you find on the talk shows or the news or the world that we live in. So focus around that. It's been a blast. Each of you are listen to the first episode. You may or may not get a shout out by being like my backup tech or my supportive tech and AV crew here. You helped me learn a lot and set it up. So super excited. And then, part of the goal that we're all kind of doing a challenge through December 15th is to, create weekly content that's going to drop every Tuesday. And so I'm on the hook for that. And lining up some guests, and I think those will be longer podcasts, but it's going to be a blast. And so, yeah, I appreciate you giving me a chance to mention that, and I appropriately forgot it because that's just life right now. But super excited, and yeah, you guys were a big motivator. Lou, your podcast, Everyday American, was. I think I texted you right away. I'm like, people need to hear this. And a guy from our men's coffee group always says, everybody has a story, and everybody deserves that story to be heard. And it's cool. It's cool hearing what people got going on. Lou, you're so East Coast. I feel like I'm a little bit more connected to the populace of the United States when I listen to you, and the way I can see the experience through your eyes and through your words, and it's really cool.
Yeah, well, thank you, man. I'm not consistent enough with my podcast, but my only goal really was always for it to be just, it's real. Like I'm going to sit and talk, or my buddies. And so when I do put out some more, which, eventually I will, I'll borrow some files from here and stuff like that. I just want to be real, man. I'm not trying to, be Joe Rogan or anything. It's just going to be straight up, and to your point, Tim, I'm, bookending, what we got going on here is just, I just want to be 1% better every day. If I can do that for 90 days, I'm 90% better. So if it's just the littlest things, and, I wanted to make a little point too. It's like, we talk about a lot of physical stuff too, but even if you're just 1% better up here and you learn something new, or you learn a new skill, or I'm reading documents all the time now for the union. Some days that's your 1% better. And we're always we should be focused physically, of course, but some days your 1% better is in your brain too, which is no one here is going to say that's not a good thing either. So it's really just doing our best. And like, I couldn't have pasta today because my wife made sauce, and typical East Coast Italian, man, I couldn't eat that rigatoni, so I had to have the meatballs and sausage. Thinking about rigatoni. So hey, it's what we signed up for. It's 90 days. It's all good. Like I said, I'm just trying to do 1% better every day.
I love it. I love it, guys. Thank you so much for doing this. I think we'll continue to do these. It's always good to have kind of a consortium of people and ideas, and it's awesome that we have this available to us, honestly. So thank you, Greg Anderson, for putting Forge together. Thank you guys for getting together on this, and we'll on to the next, guys. Have a good one.
Take care.
Take care, guys. Thanks, Tim. Thanks, Lou.